it's important to put yourself in rooms where such people can influence you and you can also make an impact.
Absolutely. If you've heard me speaking in public, I say, look, there are 5 tools to success. And this is one of the tools: network relentlessly.
Nice to meet you again.
Good to meet you again.
Thank you.
This is the power of 30 seconds, right?
Yes.
I think we first met in an elevator.
Yes. And truly, it was an elevator pitch.
Yes.
It was unexpected. I was with my kids and I saw you and I saw your family.
Yes.
And I had to sell myself really quickly.
It was a pleasure. So 6 months later, we're here.
We're here. Yeah. And that's the story of my life, taking opportunities when they come. And I really want this podcast to be about inspiring people to prepare themselves for those opportunities when they come. All right. So I am Odabo and welcome to the Multinational Network podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine being here.
Thank you, Paul. I'll go straight into it. You're the group CEO for Landmark Africa. Your story is really inspiring, and that's why I decided to make you our maiden guest today. And really, our community is about inspiring people, senior managers and executives, to break through the different levels of stagnation to their next level. The first question I have for you is a quote by Aristotle, which sounds like this: give me a child until he is 7, and I'll tell you the man he will be. What do you think about that, and how has that shaped your own life?
Interesting. I think Aristotle also said, how you treat a child when the child is born will determine how the child will treat other people when they grow up, right?
Okay.
So I had very humble beginnings, right? And this is not a rags to riches story, because I'm not rich and I didn't come from rags, right? But so I was born in London. I had working class parents. My father was a diplomat. My mother was a civil servant. She effectively was a journalist, worked with the BBC on their fashion program. And they were incredibly strict, or my mother was incredibly strict while my father traveled a lot. There were 3 of us, or there are 3 of us. I'm the last of all 3.
Okay.
And went to obviously nursery school and primary school in London. My first trip to Nigeria was at the age of 10, right?
Okay.
And that was when my father sent us to boarding school in Nigeria, my brother and I. And so we went to Federal Government College, Lagos. But 0 to 7, we just learned how to do housework. We learned how to behave properly. We're taught from ground up in terms of how you eat, how you talk, how you play. Well, my parents are extremely strict. Went to bed at a certain time every single day. Okay. And I remember saying to my mom in those days, but my friends can go out and do, and she was saying, those are your friends. Yes, this is you, right? But I look back, and when my children were growing up, and my wife too is quite strict, and I kept on saying, do I want to be as strict as my parents were to me? But you find yourself mirroring in that image, right?
Yes.
Doing the things that your parents
Yes.
did, and you begin to understand it. So it took me a long time to understand why literally we were curtailed from doing the things that other children did. They played on the streets. We were not allowed to play on the streets. If we were not in the garden, we only had playtime was a certain time, right? So it was amazing. But I look back and I think it was good fun. Even when we went to boarding school, when we came back on holidays, because we lived in a diplomatic house, there were service people, right? My mom would send all of them away when we were on holidays. We all had our jobs. I remember I had cars to wash, I had grass to cut in the garden. My sister had work to do in the rooms in the kitchen. My brother had housework to do as well, both outside and inside. It was amazing. We had on the fridge. You come out you wake up in the morning, 6 a.m. Have your shower, brush your teeth, put your clothes on, go to the fridge and look for your duties of the day.
That's intense, really intense.
It was.
That story is really a true Nigerian story. That's a true picture of a Nigerian parent and what they do. I even struggle with it myself, but now, like you said, I can see why our parents raised us up like that. Now let's fast forward to today.
Yes.
Give us a picture of your day in your life today, and let's see how the mirror effect works.
So so most days are different. I was about to say every day is different, and every day actually is different. And one of the things I always say to myself when I wake up in the morning, I say today will be better than yesterday, right? But every day is different. I do travel a lot. I work in different places, and I face different challenges and have different sorts of meetings. And the business that we've built here, is very diverse. So
Yes.
you have to deal with different challenges and different opportunities all the time. But effectively, I generally depends on where I am, right? I normally get up, or I wake up, should I say, I wake up at probably around 6:30, 7 a.m. So I'm not the 4 a.m. riser, I'm a late riser. I wake up, what I say is faff. I faff around for an hour.
Okay.
You know, I may check my emails, I may check my messages, you know, I'll put on the TV, watch a bit of news, walk around the house or the hotel room or wherever I am, right? But for an hour, I just unwind and wind and try and collect my thoughts for the day, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to make today better than yesterday, right? So generally, that's my, you know, my morning ritual, if you like. You know, I call it the miracle morning.
Yeah.
Sometimes I stretch, sometimes I don't, right? Sometimes I do some exercises, sometimes I don't, but generally that. After the first hour, I then go and shower. And I take my time, shower, brush my teeth, decide as I come out of the shower what I'm going to wear. So I'm not one of those guys that plans the day before, right? So that process takes me the best part of 45 minutes because I haven't decided what I'm going to wear, right? Sometimes I have to iron it, sometimes I don't. I don't have house helps or anything. I take care of myself, right?
Really?
So you know, I work in Nigeria, but I live in London. So my family is in London, and even in London, obviously we don't have house helps. But my children and my wife are there. But when I'm in Nigeria, most of the time, apart from when my wife comes from time to time, I'm alone. But so I iron my clothes, I wash my underwear, I tidy my bed myself, right? But that's how I was brought up.
Exactly.
And you know, if that's, you know, the price of freedom is the work you've got to do, right? So if you want to be free, then you've got to be prepared to work hard. If you're not prepared to work hard, then you're going to rely on other people to do a lot of things, and then you're not going to be free because you're going to be beholden to them, right? So if you don't know how to drive, then you need a driver. If you don't know how to cook, you need a cook. If you don't know how to clean, you need a cleaner, right? So you're reliant on all those people. I don't want to be reliant on people. I want to be reliant on my own capabilities. So it takes me another hour to do all that and make, you know, arrange the room and you know, and get out of the house. So I'm one of those people. I make my bed before I leave the house, right?
Okay.
And I do that because I was brought up that way. But B, when I come back to the bed, I want it to be neat. I don't want to have to try to neaten it up. So I make my bed, tidy my room before I leave the house in the morning. So from that time of 6:37, it takes me to about 9 o'clock before I literally walk out, right? Out of the door. I get to work a few minutes later, right? So usually sometime between 9 and 9:30, depending on where I am. If I'm in Lagos, work is not far away at all, right? It's a skip, step, and a jump. If I'm in London, it's a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute drive. So I then get to the office and, you know, I start by going through my emails and stuff. I usually have my breakfast in the office. If it's a weekday, weekends, I have my breakfast at home. So I have usually late breakfast, maybe about 10:30. Whilst I'm doing my emails and stuff. Then it depends on how my day is set, what meetings I have, whether they're in the office or outside the office. I do a lot of sort of training sessions and mentoring sessions, and my staff, I do have a list of things I try to arrange of people to talk to, things to do. You know, someone once said, success is making ordinary people do extraordinary things. Yeah. So I always, every day of my list of things to do, I put 3 names down on my piece of paper, right? And 3 people I'm going to spend 5 minutes or more with, right? Trying to get into their heads, right? Either why something was done in a certain way and how do we improve it, or who they are and why we need them to be better than they are today, right? So I do that every day for 3 people, wherever I am in the world, right?
Wow.
And it's intentional. And
Are these 3 people your employees or anybody in your...
They're anybody in my sphere, in my space, right? Usually my employees, more often than not my employees, but anybody in my space, yes. Okay. Yeah.
No, continue. That's about, let's say, this is still midday, afternoon. How do you end your day?
Yes, so I go through the day depending on the program. I usually don't finish till about 10 p.m. So, you know, the good thing is, in most places people finish work around 5, 6, right? So it gets quiet again. So I use that period to do 2 things. One is to, you know, look, I get about 500 to 700 emails a day.
Personally,
personally. Yeah.
does someone sieve through all
So
that?
I have my ear that sieves through, knocks about halves it, right? Knocks maybe 300 out of the way, and I have another 300 to 400 left, right? Of that 300 to 400, about I have that one third, one third, one third. About one third of them are important. About one third of them someone else can do, and about one third of them can wait, right? But I try to figure out what to do, and any day I don't get to my email. So if I'm on a long flight or something that has no Wi-Fi, it piles up. I could have 1,000. So I use the weekends a lot to deal with that. But my best time to deal with it is in the evenings. Yes, because emails are not coming in at that time, so you feel more efficient, right? And people are not on your case, so your phone is not ringing as much. People are not seeing you as much. So when I get calls saying, "Oh, I'll come and see you after work," people don't realize that
You're still working.
Yeah, after work is probably my most precious time, right? Because it's the time that I could do certain things, plan my tomorrow, and then reflect on the day as well. What has been done, what could be done better. And what to avoid next time, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
They say the secret of successful people lie in their stories. You said a lot. You said a whole textbook. Many people might not understand that, but first thing you said when you wake up, today will be better than yesterday. That's like a ritual. Then you have your own morning routine. And I love that it's actually different from what we hear other people who say wake up 4 a.m., wake up 3 a.m.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
So
I've barely gone to bed by then.
Okay. And then you have a morning ritual. And I can see the discipline in your whole routine. And I love the fact that you're intentionally giving into people 5 minutes a day. And I've always wondered how you've built such a large global business with people running it so efficiently that gaps are not even noticed. I can see that obviously this is one of your management leadership techniques that you use. I like the fact that you reflect over your day, because I believe for us to operate at our best lives, we really have to be super efficient. And I can hear a lot from your story, and I'm really learning how I can tweak myself. Even just making up the bed is also a routine. And Miracle Morning reminds me of a book. We'll get to that later in the conversation. Also, so I can see the parents raising you to 7 and how it has helped you create what you have done today. But in between, there's still a whole lot, right? Yes. So let me rewind a bit. Talk about your education. You went to University of Nsukka and you did your first degree there. After that, you did 3 master's program, and it was back to back. Yes. Like I checked your credentials, and there was barely a year in between. How was it intentional? And if it wasn't, how did you manage that?
So maybe to talk a little bit about that, I have to give you a quick insight into the pre-time before university.
Okay.
And by the way, we call it University of Nigeria, not University of Nsukka.
Yes.
It has 2 campuses, one in Nsukka, one in Enugu.
The best university in Nigeria. I know.
Good. I'm glad. It's very important to make that distinction. So let me talk about the best school in Nigeria, Federal Government College, Lagos, right? So I said earlier that I was sent to secondary school at the age of 10. I was sent from London to Nigeria.
Yes.
So my first experience in Nigeria was when I landed in a place called the Janiki in Lagos, down the Badagry Expressway. And look, this was tough.
It was shocking. It must be
make
cultural
no
shock.
Make no mistake about it. It was tough. It was shocking. It was tough. But like all things in life, right? You've got to experience them. You've got to accept them, experience them, and just deal with what's in front of you, right? And over time, you begin to enjoy it and like it, because you then take the opportunities rather than the threats, right? So you look at things in a positive manner rather than in a negative manner. So even as young as that, when that's a fait accompli, I began to enjoy secondary school and started enjoying the people around, because you come into a country like Nigeria from a place like London. Remember, I grew up in London in the 70s, right? So you come to Nigeria, and then all of a sudden there are people who talk like you, who look like you, who respect you. You're no longer just a digit that stands out. You're somebody amongst people. People don't look at you first and say, "Why are you black?" or "Why are you white?" People look at you and say, "Who are you?" Right? Yeah. What is your name? So that it's subtle, but you have to have lived in a different place to understand and appreciate this, right? Sure, yeah. Even eating, sitting down in a cafeteria and eating, not everybody's looking at you. right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're not the center of attention as to why. You don't walk into a room and people think, "Who are you? Why are you in
Why
this
you
room?"
here?
Right? So once I realized that, I realized I was at home. Yeah, what I thought was home was not really home. And that's when I really started enjoying it, because Nigeria and Africa generally is one of those places that you have to ignore the constraints, you have to ignore the challenges,
Yes.
especially the smaller challenges, and you have to look at the bigger picture if you're going to survive here. That's where the opportunity lies, right? Because all the opportunities in Africa are wrapped up in challenges, and none that are just sitting on the mantelpiece, right? So you've got to attack the challenge,
Work.
be in it, get battered, and then you find the opportunity, right? And it's not like that in the Western world. The challenges are over there, the opportunities are there. You just need to be in the right room. In Nigeria, they're all in one room, and so you've got to get around that. So went through secondary school in Federal Government College, Lagos. Had to go back to the UK to do my A levels, because they put me on a list for a particular school that I had to go to, and I had no choice. And I went back there. But I said to myself, I'm coming back to Nigeria. So I had to figure out how to take the JAM exams, and I came back, took the JAM exams, and chose a university. And what I did with JAM is, in those days, you had to choose 3 subjects. I don't know whether it's the same. My great subjects were maths, physics, and geography. Economics was a good subject, so I was sort of torn between geography and economics, which one to do, and I thought I'll do geography. Then I looked for the courses that matched that, and the schools, right? So the courses that matched it, that were sort of professional courses, if you like. In those days, you're doctor, engineer, lawyer. My parents would never let me out of their sights if I said I wanted to be a geologist, right? At that time, right? But if I knew then what I know now, I would have been a geologist, right? or something, right? Or a musician. Yeah. So I then matched that course to architecture. Right? And there were 2 universities that did it with that combination of subjects, right? It was University of Jos and University of Nigeria. And I chose University of Nigeria because I had the name Nigeria, which is why I corrected you when you said Nsukka. If it had been called University of Nsukka, I would have probably been Jos today, right? I would have probably gone to University of Jos. There was University of Lagos, but I would have had to change, I think it was my geography to economics.
But this is weird that you already knew yourself so much that you even knew you wanted to come back here. At that age, many people, including me, knew Jack.
Yeah.
You just go where our parents go to.
Yeah.
But you were in London. This was like the best. And you knew you wanted to come back. So that's another level of self-mastery I'm noticing.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it self-mastery. But everybody knows what they want. Some people are brave enough to go and get it, and some people just let it pass them by, right? Yes. I know what I want, and I know what makes me happy, and I try to get what makes me happy, and I try to get what I want. I'm also practical enough to understand that it's not everything you want to get. Yeah.
Yes.
But and privilege carries responsibility, right?
Yes.
So you have a responsibility to yourself, first of all, to be the best you can.
Yes.
And to be the best you can, you have to do things in a certain way. So there's an element of suffering, if you like, right? So you have to restraint, shall I say. So there's some things you can't do as much as you would want to do. And that's why you say to people, look, have a great time, but do it in moderation, right? Yes. Those that like to party, but party in moderation. Those that like to drink, but drink in moderation. Those that want to read, but read in moderation. Those that want to trek, exercise. I think life is about doing things in moderation, but trying to do the things that you like, right? As long as they're good things. They don't hurt anybody else.
Yes.
Right?
Impacting people, making lives better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Making lives better, whether it's your life, your family's life, or somebody else's life, I think is important. But generally, I think the philosophy in the world, and this is not a religious philosophy, this is just a people philosophy, is whatever you do in life, right, make sure that it's a net positive, not a net negative to other people. Some people say, I'm going to please myself. But if pleasing yourself hurts other people, then eventually you're going to get hurt, right? So when you please yourself, make sure other people are pleased at the same time, right? And that's just that almost comes from that biblical saying that treat other people as you wish.
As you wish to be treated.
As you wish to be treated.
Do unto others as you want.
Yes, but I think it's just important in life to do that. But that comes on the back of looking for the things that you want and going to try to get them, right?
To that point, have you always been a dreamer? Did you know this as a child? did that fire, that spirit never die throughout from 10-year-old to secondary school? Did it ever dwindle or did it always sustain? Many
No,
people are
always
lost.
sustained because of how we were brought up.
Was sustained?
Yes. Well, I was brought up that way. We were brought up to be curious. We were brought up to question things. We were brought up to pursue our dreams. We were brought up to dream. You know, one of the benefits of schooling in the UK at a very young age was, you know, you're just encouraged to dream and think, right? You're not put in a box, right? And then when I came to Nigeria, I thought it was the right time. The Federal Government College Lagos, I thought was an incredible place. I built relationships. I learned how to continue that dream. I discovered myself as well, a lot more about myself. I built relationships and communities. You know, we did a lot of things. We worked out there. I remember I used to go to a labor market when I was 11 years old. You know, I learned how to ride a motorbike when I was 13,
For
right?
real?
And, you know, it was an academic school as well. So and it was strict too, incredibly strict. So, you know, you're put in a box. I mean, you know, we learned how to be naughty too and break bounds. We learned the edges of what was good and bad, right? And you're always reminded what's good and bad. So, you know, it was a tough upbringing. It was tough, not because we were on the streets, but it was tough because we were in a box and we're told to do what we had to do. And we had to explore ourselves, right? So finished secondary school, did the JAM, got into University of Nigeria. I told the story why it was University of Nigeria. Arrived there for the first time in my life in Eastern Nigeria, in Enugu. And registered and met a few people and started this course architecture, right? I liked buildings. I could draw a little bit. I was creative a bit. You asked whether I was a dreamer, and yes, you know, I believe in the power of dreams.
Yes.
You know, I always dare to dream, and it's important to do that. It's one of my key principles of
Same
life.
principle I had in school, university too. I actually made a shirt, Dare to Dream.
All right, okay.
I was dreaming
All right.
how to leave the clinic. Then I was a dentist, but I was dreaming how to leave the clinic and just go global, go do something.
Yeah.
So it was a challenging moment, and that quote was very inspiring
Yes.
to me. So I was
Dare
kind
to
of
Dream.
happy to hear that that's one of yours.
Oh no, absolutely. So you say, look, upgrade your conviction to destiny, upgrade your dreams to reality. So dream, but upgrade them to reality. You know, once you have conviction, make sure it becomes your destiny, right? So in school, architecture was a 6-year course. You had to do 4+2, 4 years for BSc and 2 years masters. And you know, by year 3, I realized I didn't want to do architecture. I didn't want to be an architect, so to speak. But I liked buildings. I liked the relationship of people and buildings, and I wanted to keep on exploring that. But again, when I start something, I finish it. So finished the BSc. Thought I did extremely well. The school said I did extremely well. Stayed to do my master's in UNN again. So I did a good 6 years there. And then, you know, literally did my youth call. Because I didn't have the opportunity of going to University of Just, I did my youth call in Just. Right?
Okay.
I was being dragged back to the UK at the time, and I thought, you know what, I just need to do this, right? And just experience Nigeria from a working
So you
perspective.
really finish everything you do. I think that's a principle.
Yes.
Because you easily could have skipped the NYC.
No, absolutely. So
Easily.
Absolutely. But I think it's important. It's important to have experiences, and this was an experience I was not going to let go. And then NYC then was not what it is today. NYC then was a proper program, yeah. And you know, so I did that, and I think it was like a 9-10 month timeline. Camp was a good 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks, right? We were on camp. It was like boarding school again. And it was fun. I made some incredible friends, by the way, and some of them are the reason why I'm here today, right? So after that, I went literally straight after passing out, I went straight back to the UK, got a job with an architectural practice, and worked for 3 years to get my RIBA. Inside that period of trying to get my RIBA, I felt I just needed more practical knowledge about buildings, right?
Okay.
And from a less academic point of view to a more practical point of view. So I did a master's in property development and construction management. It did two things for me. One, it opened my mind up that there's so much more out there from a business perspective of buildings, right? And then two is I met a lot of people from different backgrounds because, you know, it wasn't just architects in that class, right? It was engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. Some
The
were
whole ecosystem
of professions were there looking to people who wanted to be property developers effectively, right? So even people who read economics, law were all in there. And, you know, for anybody who has done a master's program in England will understand this. If you haven't, then you should do one, right? Because I think it just gives you it gives you more of an ability. It sets you up in a way that you've got to think more. It's not academic. I didn't take an exam throughout the time I was there. Didn't take an exam. Everything was coursework. And when the things that they called exams were not really exams, right? You didn't have a start time and an end time. You were not put in a room and a clock, right? Yeah. There's just say, this is a question, go and answer the question, use as many books as you like, go to the library, speak to as many people. Just everything's about the power of thought, right? So it was such a good course, by the way. And 18 months later, I finished that course.
Were you working then?
Yes, I worked at the same time. So at the time, I worked as in an architectural practice.
Okay.
And I chose that particular architectural practice because the senior partner was the chairman of RIBA. RIBA is RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects. And because I had done 6 years of architecture, I needed to get a professional accreditation. And I wasn't going to finish university and not get a professional accreditation, even if I didn't want to work as an architect. But I wanted to fast track it because I schooled in Nigeria as well. I needed someone to manage me, right, and like me. And I worked hard in this architectural practice. So it was a 9 to 5 job, come at 9, leave at 5. When I was doing that first master's, I was given 2 days off because the program was Tuesday and Thursday, I think. And it was full day Tuesday and Thursday. But it meant I had to work Saturday and Sunday to make up for the 2 days they gave me off to go to this thing. Now, when I finished that course, I went back to my 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But I wanted to do another course. So I went to go and do an environmental design course.
At that time, did you know you were going to build a landmark?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No, not at all. I knew that I was going to do something, right, in the real estate field. I know that I like impact. So I wanted to do it in a big way. How I was going to do it, where I was going to do it, I had no idea, right? But right from when I was a kid, I was a dreamer, right? I always wanted to impact other people's lives, right? Just change the way people think, change the way they shop, change where they go. Impact is about influence, right? It's how do you influence other people positively. So I've always wanted to do that. And, look, when I was at school, I was the captain of my football team, my athletics team. I always did the debating society. I was very popular in all the schools I went to. And that's because I paid a lot of attention to people, a lot. If there weren't people in the world, I couldn't live, right? It makes a big difference for me. So landmark, no, not. That's a later story. So after my environmental degree, again, I thought to myself, gosh, I'm exactly where I want to be, but I want to do business, right? I needed more
experience,
more business. And so I begged, borrowed, and went to London Business School to do my MBA. I had to save.
Because you knew you needed the knowledge, you needed the network, so you still went in.
Yeah, but I'm not going to give myself that level of credit. That I knew I wanted an MBA, and the thing about an MBA is the school you go to matters.
The school you go matters.
It matters.
Apart from the knowledge, the network.
The network.
Many people don't get it.
Yes, yeah.
The network is. I went to Lagos Business School for a master's, and I didn't want to go there early on, but I was fortunate to have a mentor by accident who was one of my former bosses, the MD of the company I worked in. And he told me, where do I want to go to school? I told him one of the other universities. He said, no, go to this place. My salary then was about 150K, and LBS was about 7 million. I didn't know how I would pay for it. But when I went and came out, my best friends now is from LBS. Getting things done is just a call away, a referral. So now I understand the power of networks, and I see that story reflecting in what
absolutely. Look, I'm 60 years old. I went to secondary school at 10. I went to university at 16. I did all those master's degrees. I don't have new friends. 95% of the people that I deal with or are friendly with on a day-to-day basis, I either met in primary school, secondary school, or one of those universities. Okay? A lot of the breaks I got immediately in Europe and in the UK was because I went to LBS, London Business School. A lot of the people I met there. But it was tough. When I went to London, it was really tough. And it was tough for many reasons. First of all, it was financially very draining. So I couldn't do it on the salary I earned as an architect. So I had to get another job. But I had to get a job at a time that wouldn't interfere with my architectural job, because I had to do that, right? A lot of people drive taxis and things like that, but I wanted to do something that I could learn from, that could teach me things, and may not have made as much money as driving a taxi or working in McDonald's, right? But it gave me some stability. So I went to work with the post office, and it was a strange decision. But I remember the three of us were three friends. The other two guys, we went through hell. It was good hell though. So we worked in the post office. What it did for me, it just gave me a great knowledge of Europe, right? Because we were sorting mail, and it was done at night, so it was a convenient time. Right, so people post their letters in the daytime. They put them in these post boxes. The postman picks up these letters in all these different post boxes around the country, and they take them to sorting offices, right? And these regional sorting offices then confluence in a major sorting office in London, in a place called Farringdon. And all those things come around sort of 11 p.m. at night. And then those things have to be sorted out between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. and then go back out to where they're meant to be going, right? So that it gives you a great idea of companies, of names, of places, of people. So I went to work there. The money was fairly good, and on Christmas Day and weekends, they doubled your money if you worked on Saturday and Sunday. They trebled your money if you worked on a holiday, and if it was Christmas, your money was 4 times. I paid my rent from there. I trained myself in London Business School from there. I bought my first car from there, and I made my savings from there.
There's always a way.
Yeah, but let me tell you, let me build the hours for you now. I did 9 to 5 at Anthony Barber Associates, which was the architectural practice. Went to London Business School, so I rushed from there. Sometimes I had to leave at 3, sometimes I left at 5. I got on the train, it was across town, went to LBS. After LBS was about 2-3 hours of actual classes, and then I had coursework with my colleagues, and at the end that would take me to about 10 p.m. at night. I'll then rush to Farringdon to start work by 11 p.m. We're meant to finish by 2, but most times we didn't finish till 3 a.m. At 3 a.m. I'll finish, rush back to my apartment at the other end of town, get home about 4 a.m., shower, go to bed, up again, 8 a.m. the next day. I did this for 18 months in a row. As a matter of fact, the reason why I work late today is because of the training then. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have no issues sleeping. I can sleep now, right? If I close my eyes, I can sleep, right? But, they say there are not enough hours in the day, right, to do certain things. But then I look around and I say, well, I remember then my old boss used to say, when I told him, oh, I just had no time. And he said, I think Maggie Thatcher was the prime minister at the time, and Ronald Reagan was the president in America. And he said to me, Ronald Reagan, Maggie Thatcher, and himself have 24 hours in the day, and so do I, right? And he's running this company, Maggie Thatcher is running the country, and Ronald Reagan is running the world. And they've only got 24 hours in the day. How can I say I don't have the time? Yeah. So I said that he said his view was you got to choose the things that are important to you, right? And do them, right? And I say that to my team now. Everybody has the same amount of time. It's how you use your time and how you divide it. So in that 18 months, I divided my time well. It was good training. And when I finished the course, I did extremely well. I actually taught there for 2 years because I still owed about £60,000 after I finished. But they told me that I had a distinction in my course, and that if I taught for 2 years, they'll waive. I think I would. They'll waive about £40,000. So I did that, and that was fun because I was a visitor. I taught once a week. It was 1.5 hours every week to the first level MBA class. And I taught value engineering, which was some cost analysis, and it was an elective course. So just meeting people, most of the people I taught were older than me, experienced professionals and business people, CEOs in many companies or senior managers.
Were you building networks, or you were building networks unintentionally, intentionally, but you were?
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. You're meeting people, and a lot of these people helped me later on.
It's important to put yourself in rooms where such people can influence you, and you can also make an impact. I think many people don't intentionally plan that.
No, absolutely. If you've heard me speaking in public, I say, look, there are 5 tools to success, and this is one of the tools: network relentlessly, right? The reason why people need to network relentlessly is because there's a book called The Strength of Weak Ties. Right? Okay. And this book asserts that 73% of successful people in the world, and they define success in a certain way, right, achieve their success because of weak ties. And weak ties means your success is not achieved because of the family members or your friends or your work
Yes.
colleagues,
Yes.
right? Success is achieved by people you meet by chance in the supermarket, right? In a conference somewhere, someone that you would not have sat next to that you sat next to in an airport lobby, in a hotel lounge. Weak ties are people you meet by chance, so you're likely to meet only once and never meet again. But if you build those relationships of people you meet by chance, and you do meet them again, they will influence your life positively.
Just the way I mentioned the elevator. And we're
Well,
still
yeah,
here
that's what I
right now.
said. We're here, yeah. So we met for 30
Yes.
seconds in the elevator. We're sitting down here having a great chat.
So that's a principle that many people do not know
Network
about.
relentlessly, absolutely.
Yes.
So it's not going to LBS or going to. It's what you do when you're there, right? A lot of people go there, keep to themselves. It's like going to a party and you see your friends. Many people are tempted to go and sit with their friends.
Yes.
Yeah, and you just talk about old times. So what, right? Very few people get out of their comfort zone and speak to people they don't know, right? And nobody. Let me just say, I just assume 90% of people are uncomfortable doing that. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm uncomfortable doing many things, but I'm not comfortable till I'm uncomfortable, right? So that's just part and parcel of life. So you go to school like that. Make sure you meet people. Make sure you explore with people. Make sure you take those relationships further. Not everybody does.
Yeah, they don't. I love the story. I love the words of wisdom you're sharing. There's a question I want to ask you now, which many people struggle with. As an employee, they struggle to be star performers, especially for senior managers who have hit a roof. Everybody at that level is competent, but only if you make it to the next level, a C-suite executive, or move from 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship, there's a level of transition that has to happen again mentally. But many people start off as a kid, university, this is who I am, and they stay with that and they keep going. I see you have transited multiple times, personality from a student to an employee to building what you have built. And I assume you're going to transit several more times where you're going down the path. How do you advise such people as an employee? Because for you, working, going to school, or everything you did, it's very easy to drop the ball. What are the things that kept you grounded and made you still shine at work and break through from one level to another? Is there any story you can remember that defined you as an employee that was stellar?
Yeah, I mean, several, right? First of all, you must have desire to get out of your comfort zone, I think, generally, as in life, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. Because when you're an employee and an entrepreneur, you're still doing business, but you're doing it in someone else's company. Someone's provided you a platform to do that, and they're paying for you to do it. But it's the same sort of skills that you're using. So one day on my way from work, I think I was going to measure a building or something, but I stopped at Waterloo International. And at the time, my company were the ones doing the Waterloo International train station. They were making it a train station. This was the size of 8 football pitches, right? So it was I worked for this legendary guy called Patrick Crotty. And he was the project construction director at the time, and he was tough. I remember he used to walk around with a sledgehammer. Anything he didn't like, he broke it, right? Because he didn't want people to tell him, no, don't worry, I'll fix it. He literally broke it. So I was sitting in the coffee lounge, just taking a break. And the guy walks up and sits down next to me. And we're talking, and this guy was telling me the story. His parents just died in a car accident. He was the first of 3 children. They had a family bakery. He was looking to sell the family bakery. He had this great idea that he wanted to do, and he wanted to change the way people worked and stuff. And it was like a 2-hour conversation. It was funny when we exchanged numbers. Calls me the next day. We meet again for coffee, and he says he's going to start this company. And his name was Mark Dixon. And he said, I'm going to start this company. And he wanted to be an international company. So, he had claimed there's 7 continents. At that time, I thought there were 6 continents, but, I suppose, that's when I realized that Australia is a different continent. He said there's 7 continents, and he wanted to hire 7 different people. And from each continent, because he wanted a global company. And he didn't really have money, by the way. He just had a great idea. And he was thinking, am I prepared to join? That he assumes I'm African. I said, of course I'm African. He wanted to hire me as the African in the room. And over the next 3 to 4 months, we talked about this. It was a big risk because I had finished architectural practice. I'd gone into this other job. I was being paid extremely well. I was just beginning to enjoy my life, right? After suffering for 25 years or 27 years. And he was very convincing, and I liked his idea. And I thought, why not? Let's roll the dice. What's the worst? What's the worst that could happen?
Yes,
right?
that's the principle. What's the worst that could happen? If you could, it's like hedging or risk management.
Yeah.
What's the worst? That's sorted.
Yeah.
You can run with the dream.
No, absolutely. So I always say, and I tell my team here, I look at best case and worst case scenario all the time. The minute I'm in a band of best case and worst case scenario, I can live in that band, I roll the dice. If I can't, if the worst case scenario is too bad, right? And that's why when you're negotiating with someone says your money or your life, right? You're likely to give them your money because the worst case scenario is not worth it. Yes. Which is your life, right? And when you're negotiating with someone, they always say, make sure, no matter what it is someone's trying to buy from you or sell to you, make sure that they have something to lose if they don't meet their own part of the bargain. Then you get honesty, right, in that negotiation. If you don't do that, it's a one-way negotiation. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Mm-hmm. So I decided to join this company. This company was called Regus.
What year was this?
Gosh, 1993.
1993. And Landmark, you started building Landmark 2015.
No, gosh, I started building Landmark in 1999, 1998, 99 in London.
Oh, London, no. Yeah. No. Okay, 93, 99. Let's rewind a bit. So 93, 99. But 93, you didn't have no clue you're going to build Landmark. I just want to have that time frame.
No clue.
And see what happened led to that.
What happened was Regus.
Yes.
So in Regus, in that 6 years, we built Regus. I traveled to 60 odd countries. I built 267 offices. I worked with some amazing people. I had experiences that you could only dream of. I experienced cultures, languages, people, places, and we worked 23 hours a day. Early morning flights, late nights, economy flights, and we built places. And this was the power of dreaming, right? And anybody who says, when people start businesses and they say the thing that's holding them back is they have no money. Most people say that, right? The only thing, if I had money, I could do X, Y, Z. It's an excuse. They would never be successful. If you use money as an excuse, you will never be successful. The best and the biggest businesses in the world started without money. I saw it happen live, right? He had 200,000 euros after selling the family factory to start this thing. He used all the money to hire people. Didn't use money to do anything else. And his idea was to find offices in the best parts of the world and commoditize it. So you didn't have to rent and lease an office, go and buy furniture and stuff like that. It was office hoteling, fully serviced offices, Regus, yeah. But the idea is, how do you get these offices? He couldn't build them because he didn't have money. He couldn't rent them because he couldn't pay for them. He couldn't buy furniture because he had no money. So he went to all these buildings. So what we did, we then traveled. We used this money for flights and for people. We traveled to all these parts of the world. We looked for the best city and the best streets in the world. And we looked for the office blocks that were there, that were empty. And we went to see the owners and we said, look, if you have 10 floors and 8 floors are empty, give us 1 floor, right? I give it to us for free. We will put people in it, and when the money we make, we'll give you some of the money we make. And when these people grow, they will hire remaining floors. We managed to sell that to a number of landlords, and they accepted. And they said, okay, it's a zero-sum game, right? I don't have anything to lose. Now we had to furnish these offices. How do you furnish these offices? We then had to go to furniture suppliers around the world and said, look, you're paying all these expensive rents to have furniture showrooms and advertise. We will advertise your furniture in an office where people are actually using furniture, right? So these guys gave us their furniture for free. We did the same thing with telecoms companies and computer companies.
My mind is blowing on several different levels.
No, it was amazing. And we did the same thing. And we standardized everything. I remember going into this Dutch factory with him, and we negotiated with a company called K&N, the largest furniture supplier in the world. And we said, by the time we're building our network, we said we'll put your furniture in 26 countries overnight if you give us furniture. Right? And you can send all your potential clients to these countries. Because we had 26 offices in 26 countries. And they just agreed. They were all over us. Right?
Partnerships,
right? But, partnerships about, we made mistakes as well. We had partnerships with people who didn't deliver or who hurt us or who got greedy later and stuff. But I remember the thing that Warren Buffett says, the miracle of Omaha. He says, I've never done a good deal with a bad person. Right? And that's kept me throughout my life, is I just make sure that when I do business with people, first of all, you have to be good. But, that's number one criteria. Whether you can do the business or not is not the number one criteria, because I tell you something, if you do business with the wrong person, no matter what sort of expert knowledge they have, they will hurt you eventually. You know, and you see it all over. I mean, you know, Africa is a place you see people getting hurt left, right, and center, and it's just bad people. And they're bad people in the private sector, they're bad people in the public sector, they're bad people in the schools, in the education system, in the health system, and that's why we are where we are, right? But you know, it's been infiltrated
Sorry.
gradually by good people, right? And things are improving, irrespective of how they look, right? The things are improving throughout Africa. And you can see throughout what was called the third world. And the third world is meeting the first world head on. And so, you know, it's blurred now, right? It's just that we still have infrastructure challenges and stuff. So it's not quite obvious of the transitions made, but this digital revolution is creating that transition and it's making it pretty fast. Anyway, wind back to Regus. In that period, was it, I think after about 2 or 3 years, he ran out of money, but you know the business had grown. By then we're in a lot of countries, right? But there was just literally no money to, you know, that's over 600 employees at the time. But there's no money to just continue paying the senior staff who were us. There was 7 of us, you know. So when they hired, there was a Mexican called Bob Goodrow. There was a Dutch guy called Job Dawn. There was an Indian called Rudy Lobo. Paul Onwuanibe, I was the African. And so he walked up to us and said, look, I want to give you 5% of the company each. There was 7 of us. That must have been 35% of the company. But he wouldn't pay us a salary for 2 years, right? And he said, look, it's up to you. I couldn't do it. I had a family to feed, a mortgage to pay. I had children that were just about being born. But 4 out of the 7 of us did. They took it. 3 didn't. And I was one of the 3 that didn't. When we floated simultaneously on the London Stock Exchange and New York Stock Exchange for $4 billion, right? The company that started at 200,000 euros. Those guys who took that 5% cashed 70 million pounds each, right? You know, obviously we got a handshake and a pat on the back, right? But I mean that's all right. You know, you can't lose what you don't have. You never had, right?
Yeah.
So when people will say, "No, but you've lost," I said, "I haven't lost anything. I've just learned a lesson." Right? And you know, that's an experience that will live with me for a long time. And that was the experience that gave birth to Landmark.
Exactly. You let go of something to birth something, to receive something else, which is also a principle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then you started the Landmark journey. And I think I know at this point, he literally took the same principles of working and how he built his company, how managing people, and put your own self into it. Starting Landmark Africa is a different ball game. Compared to working across borders, here was different. How did you manage that? Because managing people here is not necessarily more difficult, but I assume it has its own challenges. How do you make it work so efficiently? Like throughout, I've been across your ecosystem from hospitality to the leisure to the business, and I can see a sense of calm among your employee. They are very focused, you know what they do, what to do. They're very pleasing customer service. How do you manage that? How do you do it? That's really the question. Your leadership style. Because from where I worked largely in the sales perspective throughout the companies, multinationals I worked, and you see lots of fear-based leadership where employees are driven to meet targets. If you don't do this happens. And because I had a dream, when such things came to me, I wasn't scared to let go. Like, I'm leaving at this point. I have other things to do. I wasn't clear. I never knew I was going to be speaking 5 years ago. I would just do what I was doing. So, but many people don't have that opportunity to say no and walk away, right? But so how do you manage? What's your perspective in terms of fear-based leadership, balancing people, managing people?
So I understand the stick and the carrot. I understand. At the end of the day, look, people do what they want to do. Good people do the good things and bad people do the bad things, right? But there are a big set of people in between good and bad, right? And it's how you cultivate those people and get them to be on the good side, right? So, you know what I said at the beginning, you know, how do you make ordinary people do extraordinary things? So the things, I like to find intelligent people because intelligent people generally know the difference between good and bad, right? Wrong and right. And that's the key thing. That's the only good thing about intelligence. Intelligence is not brain science all the time. You don't have to, we're not building rockets here, right? So what you want is you just want people who can change, right? And who can think and be creative. So once you find intelligent people, the next thing you need to find is passionate people. You need to make sure they're passionate. If you find that they've got some passion, then you need to make sure they have courage. Because courage in business is so important. You've got to almost damn the consequences to do the things that actually matter. if you don't have courage, you'll be afraid of doing certain things, and you'll be suboptimal all the time, right? So once you find people who have courage, then you figure out, are they going to be business savvy? Can they count, right? Can they just do the things that actually matter at the right times? And by and large, they can. But businesses only do well when you've got good people. If businesses don't have good people, they won't do well. So I spend a lot of my time on people.
So on the other side of being uncomfortable, growth really happens when you're uncomfortable. Move out of your comfort zone. It's also the factor of fear. Many people can't live out of that zone. They can't take necessary risks. They can't build things global and have the kind of impact you have done. You move from working as an employee to creating Landmark. You also rely on Lions Den, done extraordinary well. I like watching your show. And I know also there was a loss of the Landmark Beach, which hits most of your hospitality. Not most, but it was a large chunk of your hospitality and businesses were impacted. Fear, how do you manage it? How do you address fear?
So I think the thing about fear is, which American president said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Yes.
Was it? No, it was British. It was Winston Churchill, right? During the war. Look, fear is something you have to embrace in life, because fear, that's why I talk about courage, right? If you don't have courage, you won't achieve things. And courage is the thing that battles fear. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. Nothing wrong with it at all. I tell people say, oh, you love speaking in public. I said, I don't. I'm as afraid as you are, right? I just have the courage to do it. And I feel I'll just get better and better and better, right? But if you don't fear something, when you're overconfident about something, you're not likely to do well. It's okay to be afraid. Say it's fine. And then I was brought up that way. It's okay to be afraid of the dark, but embrace it. The darkness will come. Night follows day. So embrace it. Be afraid, but embrace it and prepare. So if you need to see, make sure you have a torchlight. Make sure you know where your light switch is. So they're mitigants to fear. And then that's how I tell people, that's how you deal with fear. But you remember in your last question, you talked about leaders who rule with fear.
Yes.
It's the worst thing you can do because it's unsustainable, right? Because people eventually buckle to it. They just say, look, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. And I'm not going to do what this person has said. And they only do what you say in front of you, right? They don't do the same thing behind you. And when you're running a business or a city or a country or anything of substance, then you need people to do the right things when you're not looking, right?
Yes.
And that's how you create a movement. So fear can be used in many different ways, but the positive use of fear is preparation. It's just be prepared.
Thank you, Paul. Congratulations on the new opportunities you're creating with Landmark across the country. I know you're doing things in Owerri, Port Harcourt, Justice in the pipeline. So congratulations on that. I'm looking forward to touring all of that. I love Landmark Lagos. I'm looking forward to touring all the other destinations.
So are we. We look forward with excitement. So we've effectively taken the best parts of our business and we've said we're going to geographically diversify across the West African seaboard, right? So we're doing something in Liberia, in Gambia, in Ghana. Nigeria. We've taken over the Nike Lake Resort. We're looking in Owerri, Aba, Port Harcourt, Jos. And we're obviously looking quite intensely in Cross River State and River State and in Akwa Ibom as well. So there are a number of opportunities out there. Many we've signed and started. Some we're still fleshing out, and others we're pitching. So we look forward to the future with amazing
optimism. I think your story has embraced the three pillars the multinational network stands for. People, connections, and growth. That's what I largely dreamed of this community being about, and I can see it in your story. Really hope to make more impact. And there's one last question I have for you, which is about own your career, own your life. I've seen that work in my life, owning something and just going with it. But in a sentence or two, I want you to describe how that has guided or shaped your life. Own your career, own your life.
So just to put some color on this, and I like the people, connections, and growth. It's so apt. But to put some color in it is you own your body, so you own your thoughts. So you must be responsible for your actions, right? And if you're responsible for your actions, then you're going to own your life, right? But you have to be equipped. You have to have all the tools to figure that out, right? And we've talked about my schooling and business school and working and stuff. And those things are, you're getting tools and you're putting in your toolbox. But it's not every tool you come across you put in your toolbox. Some you leave out, some you put in. But having a toolbox full of tools is useless unless one day you use those tools, right? So you must always have a dream. You must always have something to chase. So I say 3 things. Find someone to look up to, find something to chase, and find somewhere to go.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Paul. It's been a pleasure
Thank
talking
you,
to you.
Zaba. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.